Okay, so we are live, and this is another Batman the Animated Series watch along, but it's not an episode of Batman the Animated Series proper. This is Mask of the Phantasm. So I've been looking forward to this for a while. We've been watching, well, trying my best to watch in chronological order, at least in terms of air date. It's gotten kind of shuffled around a little bit because HBO Max would kind of skip some episodes on me for whatever reason. So but we've got to the point now where we're going to watch the animated movie Mask of the Phantasm, which would have come out in December of 1992, I believe. So, this was a big one. This is one that many people consider to be the finest Batman movie, and it's hard for me to judge the live action versus the animation. And to me, animation is always going to have an advantage over live action as far as Batman goes, because Batman is a creature of ink and paper. He's always going to look better when somebody draws him than he will when he's an actor in a suit. Like there's certain things you can do when you're drawing Batman that a flesh and blood actor just can't do. And even when they got to Ben Affleck, who I think had the most comic book accurate suit and had some great stunt work, and the advantages of modern special effects. I'll talk a lot about how like I feel like Ben Affleck is a very B-task kind of Batman. He's very much like the Batman of this show, but even still, he can't quite match it. Nothing against him. I love his performance, but anyway, let's go and get started. So I was really excited about this movie coming out in the theater, and I completely missed it in the theater because it wasn't in theaters very long. Apparently, like a lot of theaters that showed this movie only showed it as a matinee. It didn't get like a super wide release, and I think a lot of people slept on it, both in terms of like the studio and the theater and the moviegoers, because they probably thought it was going to be some kind of cheap cash in on the TV show, but it was anything but. And you can tell you're in for something different when you're seeing these opening credits with this CGI Gotham City, which is not something that we've seen in the show at all. It's something very different from not just what we would see on the show, but what anybody had ever seen of anything. They didn't do things like this back then. CGI was still in its infancy. Like this was, not long after Terminator 2, and not long before Jurassic Park. So that's where it fits in. And this opening theme with the chorus singing, and by the way, the lyrics that they're singing are members of the crew with their names are sung backwards. So that's what that is. And we see a lot of familiar names in this. We've seen, I believe that Alan Burnett was like the guy who came up with most of the background of the story, and him and Michael Reeves would have been like the driving force of it. Paul Dini's name is on here, but apparently he didn't really do a whole lot on it. Probably wrote some of the dialogue, but story-wise, I believe this was Alan Burnett's baby. These guys are looking over some fancy new uh, counterfeit money, and Batman's gonna burst in and bust this up. Which to me is kind of funny because I don't know what Batman's really hoping to accomplish here, because it's just like a mob meeting where they're talking about this stuff. Unless he just wants to be like, hey, I know what you guys are up to. I'm going to put a stop to it. Maybe he figures if he catches Chucky Saul there with the briefcase full of counterfeit bills, that'll be enough to put him away. Oh, the little bit where he kicks the table. Oh, that's so good. But Batman isn't the only person who's after Chucky Saul. And I guess it's because he just hasn't gotten a good look at this shadowy figure. He just assumes it's Batman. Well, the eyes are kind of shaped the same. But even with the cape, it's like a completely different silhouette because of the hood. Phantasm was distracted slightly. That was just enough time for Chucky to get to his car. And Phantasm is presented almost like a horror movie sort of character. Like not too different from like a slasher movie villain like Jason or Leatherface in terms of just being like this unstoppable force. And the way Phantasm smashed through the windshield, it almost seems like something you can imagine Jason Voorhees doing. If this was a Fast and the Furious movie, he'd be fine. But he's dead. Can't really do that in the television series. Like any characters they killed off, they've been really subtle about. But this is a movie; they can get away with a little bit more. And the broken glass, and he goes chasing after this mysterious masked figure. Just a whiff of smoke. That's all that's left. Vanishing like a phantasm. So this guy here is Arthur Reeves. He is a character from the comic books. He was a slimy city councilman in the comic books, and he's a slimy city councilman here. And he's played by the actor Hart Bochner, who is most known for playing a sleazy corporate guy in Die Hard. He's the guy that's like, the kind of that sells him out, that guy. But the main thing I remembered him from at the time that I watched this, I didn't realize that it was the same guy from Die Hard, but I did recognize him from the Supergirl movie, where he plays the himbo type character that is in the love triangle with Supergirl and Faye Dunaway. And here we got Batman doing some detective work, researching the residue that he found on the broken glass. Interesting way of introducing Andrea Beaumont here. We're getting kind of a slow reveal of her. She's all in the shadows. We don't see her face. Yeah, that's what she says, but we saw her fondling that magazine. Stately Wayne Manor. We see a lot of cars parked outside, and there's some kind of big shindig going on here, probably for charity. And they can actually drink wine since this is a movie. Bunch of ethnically diverse women fawning over him. This is what I'm talking about with the whole representation thing. People make a big deal of it one way or another. It's always been diverse. We've always had diversity. Now you remember in the episode Joker's Wild where I saw the girl with Bruce at the opening of the Joker's Wild casino, and I said, "Remember that girl? She's going to be important." There she is. So apparently, after that casino opening, he never called her back. We all know Bruce was probably a little distracted because that whole Joker thing. And here is Councilman Reeves. And he nailed Bruce with that line. That's probably like his most important line in the movie. You pick them as if you know there's no chance of a serious relationship, at least since that one girl. You know where you can stick it. him kind of needling Bruce a little bit, and Bruce just kind of needles him back. But then when he gets away, we see that Arthur's remark has wounded him a bit more than he wanted to let on. And he looks at the painting of his parents, but it's not his parents that he's really thinking of in this case. And you were some remembering again at the grave of his parents, but it's not his parents he's thinking about. He's thinking about when he met her. No. Crazy lady talking to herself, okay. And then she just goes right back to talking to herself. But she's not really talking to herself. Is it any wonder he fell in love with her? So Dana Delaney is the voice of Andrea Beaumont, and she was somebody that like I had a crush on when I was a kid. She was on this show called China Beach, which she played a Vietnam era nurse. Pretty good show as I remember, but I haven't seen it in years. And she was also in Tombstone, which oddly enough had Val Kilmer in it, who also played Batman. Andrea Beaumont is, of course, named after the voice acting director Andrea Romano. There was a joke that Kevin Conroy would do whenever he would do like a fight scene with a lot of grunts and groans. Andrea. So that was kind of a running gag, a little joke that he would make during the recording. And big hat. You know that was a place Jervis Tetch would have given a hard time to. But yeah, he would make this joke frequently during recording. So when it came time to name this character, I guess somebody thought of that. So anytime he says Andrea, I always think of that. And Bruce Wayne with the ski mask. Going back to things that would have inspired Christopher Nolan, we of course remember Bruce Wayne wearing a ski mask before he had his full Batman costume in Batman Begins. And these guys are just not impressed. He's just some weirdo in a ski mask. They're not afraid of him at all. He thinks he's just going to be like a ninja or something. But he's figured out that there's a lot more to crime fighting than just like the fighting skills and the detective work. He's got to have a rep. And not just any kind of rep. He's realizing, and he'll say this later, he's got to make them afraid of him. That fear will become his greatest weapon. Criminals are a superstitious, cowardly lot. I need a disguise that will strike terror into their hearts. But we can see he's got the skills down. I mean, he's not quite as good as he'll get to be later, but he's good enough to stop these guys. And look who's in the police car. Harvey Bullock doing a spit take. And, you know, Rookie Bullock with the grizzled older partner. It kind of makes me think of Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, where they were chasing after Two-Face's henchman, and Batman shows up. And that's another scene that Christopher Nolan paid tribute to in The Dark Knight Rises. Bruce is probably concerned, but there's nothing he can really do. He's got to stop the guy driving the truck. And we can see a little bit of Bruce's ankle there, like he wasn't wearing socks. Smashing his windshield with the hammer. It is interesting to see Bruce like trying to just be like some kind of generic vigilante before he even really figured out how to be Batman. And you got to imagine that if he had the suit, even if he hadn't built his rep yet, I kind of suspect that this would have gone a little more smoothly, just because like maybe they would have thought there was something of the supernatural about Batman that they don't think of some guy in a bomber jacket and a ski mask. And the rest of the cops showed up. Mysterious vigilante repels bandits. Something about Eric Radomski I didn't get a chance to read. And here we can see Alfred with the black hair, indicating that he's younger. And also, I didn't mention it earlier, but Bruce has his hair combed back, as he often does in the younger flashbacks. Remember in the episode Robin's Reckoning, how in the early part of that he had his hair combed back, and then later on he had the cowlick like he has in the modern era stuff. She showed up in a sundress. She's looking to impress him. Andrea is very likable, very witty. She's obviously somebody who's intelligent enough to hold her own with Bruce. She's quite beautiful. She reminds me, in hindsight, of Haley Atwell, who is an actress who I really enjoy seeing her and stuff. Some nice film noirish lighting on there. And Alfred's bringing him some lemonade, but then he's like, well, maybe I'll give him a little bit of privacy. Yeah, she was definitely into him. And it's no wonder he fell in love with her. And that Bambi character is voiced by Arlene Sorkin, who, we all know her as Harley Quinn, but Harley isn't in this movie. But I think they probably just wanted to give her a little bit of a part in the movie anyway, even though the character wasn't in it. I didn't mention it at the time because I was talking about other stuff, but she's also the Asian girl who talks about the I word, engagement. I think I did the wrong hand. I think it should be the left hand, shouldn't it? That's where you put in an engagement ring. But yeah. And this guy coming to pay his last respects, Chucky Saul, doesn't realize he will soon be joining him. It says Chucky on his tomb, not even Charles Saul. he gets Chucky on it. Maybe Chucky is his like legal name. Parent who was born and what do you name him, Mr. and Mrs. Saul? Chucky, not Charles. No, Chucky. Not even Chuck. Chucky. This guy's another one of those like generic gangster types, like we see on BTAS a lot. Boz Bronsky. But he's definitely got that 1940s gangster sort of look. This is, I think, a pretty perfect noir Batman story. Like, if you really want to tell a film noir kind of Batman story, look at this one, see what they did, because they did a really good job. And the Phantasm. The mask is so cool. And Phantasm sliced right through that pickaxe blade like it was nothing. But you also saw the smoke coming off the end of it. I gotta kind of wonder if like there's like something acidic in the scythe, maybe. Now, Chucky saw when he died. Obviously, Phantasm was trying to kill him, but I think what really killed him was just like him freaking out and driving in the wrong direction. But this one, Phantasm is definitely the killer. Sees him in the grave, trying to claw himself out. They probably could have done it in such a way where maybe when he was trying to claw himself out of the grave, it would have made the ground unstable, and then the statue could have fallen over. But no, Phantasm is definitely pushing the statue over onto Bronski. He's dead. And of course, they see the silhouetted figure from the distance, and they think it's Batman. Batman started wearing a hood, apparently. And this old, decrepit gangster, Sal Valestra. And we'll come to find out that he was at one point like one of the biggest, if not the biggest, mob boss in Gotham City. And he's voiced by the late Abe Vigoda, who I figure these days probably most people know him for his appearance in The Godfather, but for me, at least at the time, he was I most knew him as being Fish on Barney Miller. There was kind of a running gag throughout the 80s where like people would, think that Abe Vigoda was dead. And there was even a website that said, is Abe Vigoda dead? And you'd go and click on it and it would say no until he actually did die. And then they had to change it to yes. Sadly. You smug bastard. But Batman knows better. I don't know if Gordon tipped him off or if he just saw from a distance before he went to police headquarters. Yep, Jim's not there. This is some kind of trap. I know the feeling. I like the lighting on Batman there. Very cool. And while he's here, he's going to stop and see his parents. And then he hears that familiar voice. It doesn't take much for her to figure it out. If I had a thought about it, I would have looked for that watchtower from Perchance to Dream. Obviously, he went there because he was looking to Buzz Bronski's death, but if that is where the tower is, if I'm right about that theory that it's at the cemetery where his parents are buried, he would have went by there anyway. Bruce is keeping an eye on her. He's about to get a little jelly. He wished that Carl Beaumont could have shown up. That's interesting. We'll remember that later. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't watched this yet. Although I don't know why you'd be watching me talking about this movie without having watched it. Because I might say some spoilery kind of stuff. I'm trying to not be too spoilery about it, though. At least until we get to that point in the movie. So this is pretty obviously inspired by the 1939 World's Fair, which was a really big deal around the time that Batman was first created. It's worth noting that there were a couple of specials that DC put out for the World's Fair, both of which featured Superman. One of which, the first of which, Superman is actually drawn as being blonde on the cover. The second of which would feature a cover appearance. In the first one, Superman is just like a little portrait of his head in a little circle off to the side. The second one, Batman also appears. Batman and Robin. This would have been 1940. Robin would have been introduced by then, and Superman, Batman, and Robin are all standing together at the World's Fair. So that would have been the first time ever we'd seen Superman meet Batman. Not an official story; they don't meet on the actual inside, but on the cover of the book, we see Superman and Batman together, and that's the first time. A little exchange with Bruce and Alfred that we're about to see. Oh well, sure, I'm sure. What am I doing, Alfred? It's kind of a funny thing that the 1989 Batman movie, Sam Hamm, the screenwriter, said that like in his mind it was a story about an insane man going sane, regaining his sanity, and it was the love of Vicky Vale that helped him do that. That was as he intended the story to be, and we're almost kind of seeing it here. I think they do a better job with it here than they did in the final 1989 Batman movie. I think it comes across better here. But of course, since we know that Bruce Wayne became Batman, we know that this relationship, and since they're broken up in the present, we know that this relationship doesn't end well, unfortunately. It doesn't last. And Carl Beaumont here is voiced by Stacy Keach. I think it's Stacy Keach, and also the voice of the Phantasm. Oddly enough, and now we see Sal Valestro when he was younger and a lot more imposing and a heavy smoker. And when we saw him earlier, he obviously was having a lot of breathing problems. So his bad habits caught up with him. And this creepy individual driving the car, if he looks familiar to you, he probably should. Bruce sees these thugs harassing this guy with his little watch stand, and he can't stand idly by. He can't countenance injustice. And she's all worried about him. The look on his face, that look of determination. It's that Batman kind of intensity. And Andrea can't do anything but just watch. How much would that hurt? Like he literally like was riding a motorcycle into Bruce's fist. And Bruce allows himself to get kind of distracted by Andrea because she's worried for him. I think Bruce would have made short work of these guys if he hadn't allowed himself to get distracted. And that's why he treats her a little bit harshly here. And she's just concerned about him, but he's just got too much pride. And he's still thinking about this vigilante thing and trying to figure it out. He can't quite get his head wrapped around it. And now he's got this other problem where like if he does this thing, he's gonna have Andrea worrying about him. And he can't have that. Hmm. Torn between his promise to his parents and his desire to be with Andrea. And then we cut to this scene with him. It's a fake out. Like at first you're supposed to think he's talking to Andrea, but he's talking to his parents. I think Bruce's parents would want him to be happy, but knowing his psychological makeup, it's understandable that he would read this entirely in the opposite way. And this is a callback to Andrea talking to her mother. I love this line here. I didn't count on being happy. She knew where to look for him. There's a lot of like kind of what ifs to this story and things where I think to myself, if something had have happened just slightly differently, maybe Bruce and Andrea could have been together. But then Gotham City wouldn't have Batman. Sal Valestra. And you notice how everybody was kind of intimidated by this guy before, but now he's just kind of like this pathetic shell of his former self. And nobody's intimidated by him anymore. A comedian? This is the Batman we're talking about here. A freak job. He'll crucify me. Uh, Great line, great delivery. Abe Vigoda is awesome in this. And the look on his face. Oh, that's such good acting. And the drawing. Good acting by the voice actor. Good acting by the artist O'Neill and Adams. And Batman, Alfred's polishing the fencing equipment. You would think that that would be a hint as to something that's going to happen later, but we don't really see that. Like maybe a duel between Batman and the Joker, like an actual fencing duel. Maybe that's something they could have done. I die up at your bottom. I bloody well ought to, sir. Sassy Alfred is the best Alfred. And Alfred is totally not wrong, by the way. Alfred is correct. No guardrails on that or anything. Obviously, Bruce studied under the Ralph McQuarrie Star Wars School of Design. Looking through the paperwork, Sal Valestra with Hamilton Hill, who seemed pretty happy to be seen with Sal Valestra. And there's our three gangsters and Carl Beaumont. So yeah, Carl is already planning on fleeing the country and taking Andrea with him. She already knows what he's gonna say. And he still gets on one knee. She still opens it. I think it's more the size of the rock that causes that shock. She knew what he was doing. Yeah, you're changing the plan, but what does the plan have to say about that? The bats. It's his destiny. He can try to get away from it, but he can't ever really get away from it, can he? And this creepy individual again. They just instantly don't like each other. It's instantly that animosity there. Oh. The music here is so good. It's Andrea's theme, but now it's played all sad. And she just left him. He doesn't know why, but he's been abandoned again. He doesn't have anything left. All he has left is the plan and the music, the animation. And he puts on the mask, and Alfred's reaction when he turns around and that music swells. Alfred's reaction. This is a man witnessing the birth of a legend. Bruce Wayne is now Batman. And he takes the picture. He takes that picture. He's putting together the clues. He's figuring it out. But he's not going to be the first person to solve this mystery. Somebody else is going to solve it first. Someone who has one vital clue that Batman does not have. And now the robots dance. It's the Joker. The Joker, of course, voiced by Mark Hamill, which when I was a small child, Luke Skywalker was one of my heroes. And now he plays one of the greatest villains of my childhood. So I guess what Harvey Dent said is true. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Little cartoon sound effect there. Just lifting him like the way Batman would lift a fat man. You notice he closed the bar on Balestra, but then he just hops in next to him. His legs are over the safety bar. That's a nice touch. House of the Future with a robot maid and a robot dog. Down, Rusty. The dog even made like a little yeep kind of sound when he kicked him away. Why is everybody down on Meatloaf on this show? I love Meatloaf. Pinches her cheek, rips it loose, he puts it in his pocket. I like this setup here with the couch and the easy chair and the little ottoman. It almost makes us think of like this kind of perverse talk show. He's offering him $5 million to kill Batman. You would think that would be something Batman, the Joker would just be willing to do just on principle. But if you're good at something, never do it for free. I love the way the screen fades to red behind him in the background. I don't know what he did. The way he does the shift between just menacingly angry, it's so great. That's the Joker to me. Is he should just be like completely unpredictable like that. Like Danny O'Neill said, the Danny O'Neill quote I always point out: he will kill you because he doesn't like the color of your shoes, or he will give you $50,000 also because he doesn't like the color of your shoes. She knows Bruce is watching her. She saw him already. And notice how cold she is towards him here. And there's the picture. What you told Reeves. And read them now. Get out. Very noirish. This whole thing is just so noirish. Yeah, well, I know the truth about you, Miss Thing. But even with her acting all cold towards him like that, when she's alone, their breakup, I think, hurt her just as much as it hurt Bruce, if not more. Especially because we haven't seen the whole story yet. But it's coming. And now the Phantasm has arrived to claim his newest victim, their newest victim. He took your money, and he's going to try to kill Batman still. But that doesn't mean you're going to live. And there's this great shot of Phantasm climbing up the ladder. And then here comes Batman in the Batwing. Too late to do anything for poor old Sal Valestra. Too late to even catch the Joker, but he can at least catch Phantasm. Or he can at least try to catch Phantasm. And Phantasm can run fast. Batman leaps out of the plane, tackling his mysterious adversary. And Phantasm is reluctant to fight Batman. And here come the police copters. And remember, they think Batman's the one killing all these gangsters. So when Phantasm mysteriously disappears, and he can't get back to his Batwing, so he's got no choice but to try to escape on foot. And this is like probably one of the best action sequences that we ever see on any Batman the Animated Series. I think any of the movies, any of the episodes of the show, this is just such a great set piece with him evading the police. I always like to see Batman fighting cops. It always is interesting. Because Batman doesn't really want to hurt the cops. And I like Batman's the shape of his silhouette on the in the searchlight, and it forms the shape of the bat signal. The symbol of Batman's working with the police. And now they're against him, trying to catch him. And I like Bullock in this is that he's basically trying to catch Batman at this point because it's his job. And we've seen Bullock be kind of adversarial to Batman a lot in this show. But I think that now it's kind of gotten to the point where, like, a lot of those hard feelings have kind of dissipated. And now he's just kind of trying to catch Batman because it's his job. Come to think of it, Bullock is a lot like the Sergeant Garcia character that you often see in Zorro, where he's starts out as kind of an adversary to Zorro and trying to catch him, but kind of comes around on him and becomes almost kind of like an ally to Zorro later on in the show. Like, and if he's trying to catch him, it's just because he's just doing his job. Blood. Oh, he's bleeding. There's something we don't see a whole lot on Batman the Animated Series, but it's the movie, so we can do that. This whole scene, I think, was probably like a deliberate homage to Batman Year One, with Batman fighting the SWAT team in the bombed out, condemned building. And they're all just shooting at what turns out is just Batman's cape tied to a sawhorse. And you might wonder why Batman might send his mask as part of it, but I guess he figures if they get close enough to see he's Bruce Wayne, they've already caught him anyway. But there's something so cool about seeing this unmasked Batman just trying to run away from the cops. And it's Andrea. How did she know how to find him? Oh, she tells him that, like, it was all over the news. But it does seem rather convenient, doesn't it? Meanwhile, at Stately Wayne Manor. Mhm. And we recognize all three of these guys, don't we? On his knees. Begged like a dog. Again with the cigarette smoke. But we all know now it wasn't cigarette smoke that killed Sal Valestra. And I like that Valestra has like a kind of a little bit more of a slick look than we're used to the gangsters having. The way he kind of gives her that little wink there. The fact that he would actually flirt with her kind of suggests to me that at least he thinks he's a kind of a ladies' man. The funny thing is, I think if they had have actually talked to Bruce about what was going on, maybe he might have been able to help them. I mean, he's not Batman yet, but he does have a certain set of skills. So I'm thinking maybe he could have maybe actually done something to help them out. They would have interest compounded in blood. I don't want to spoil too much of what's coming up in a little bit, but I'll say this: what she's saying to him, she's not necessarily lying. She's just not giving him all of the truth. But like I said, if you haven't watched this movie already, why are you watching it with me like squawking through it? The best thing to do is watch this movie and then come back and watch this where I'm squawking through it. If you really want my thoughts and opinions on this movie, that's the best way to get them. And even now, Bruce is entertaining thoughts of, maybe once he clears up this whole mess with the Phantasm and the Joker and everything. Well, he doesn't even really know the Joker's connected yet. He didn't hear the recorded message. I like her in this shirt. It's nice. That was a nice little character bit. Maybe that. And cutting from the picture of him and Andrea to the picture of his parents. But then he notices that red pencil. Uh-oh. They have made a few references in the series up to this point to Jack Napier. The character goes unnamed in this. I'm going to assume in the overall continuity of the show that Jack Napier was just an alias the Joker used and not his real name. But then again, it might have been that in the 89 movie, too. The Councilman and his wacky pal. So I'm thinking what happens here is since Joker goes to Reeves first, Batman will see goes to Reeves later when he would have heard about the encounter with the Joker, with the joy buzzer, like that. I've seen the guy. Maybe. Gulp. Sob. Me too. So Reeves is the Joker's first suspect as to who the Phantasm would be. And obviously, I never thought that Reeves could possibly be the Phantasm. He's just such a wormy guy. But then when the Joker hears that Andrea's still alive, you notice he starts to change in his attitude. Coinky dink. Makes you want to laugh, doesn't it? And this is a nice little segue. Oh, the close up of the Joker's laughing mouth. Oh, it's so good. And now at the hospital. But the maniacal laughter we're hearing now is not coming from the Joker. It's coming from Arthur Reeves. Councilman, please. And we've seen this doctor before. Give him the sedative. But the Joker didn't kill him. But he might have done something worse. Startled by the sudden appearance of the Batman. And remember, Batman at this point thinks that Carl Beaumont is most likely a Phantasm. The Joker knows that Carl Beaumont is not the Phantasm. But Batman's putting clues together. He's about to figure it out. So you sold him to the mob. Did you believe them? I wonder if you really believed. But now Batman's got it figured out. He's just got to confirm his suspicions. He probably doesn't want to believe it, but he's figured it out anyway. Maybe he doesn't realize it, but his brain did. That locket. All these years she's been carrying this locket with their picture in it. And I'm pretty sure it's the same picture as before. And this is what I think just really confirms it for Batman. What makes him realize, yep, Because why else would the Joker try to kill her? Fun gift. Airmail. Yeah. Disconnected. And there's Andrea back at the World's Fair. If the world were equitable, I'd still have my ex position. I still have my old job. At the World's Fair, I have my ex job. You know what I mean. So that's how the Joker was able to solve the mystery before Batman. He had the one vital clue that Batman didn't have, that Carl Beaumont was already dead. And that means the only person that could be Phantasm is Andrea Beaumont. What did he pinch that time, do you think? But he's not impressed with her parlor tricks. He knows exactly who she is. No more need for the disguise. Who might have thought? The acid spitting boutonniere. The Joker will hit a girl, but she fights dirty also. And now she has to fight Hazel. I'd seen recently where somebody had done a screen cap of this shot that we're about to see, and said, if your Joker doesn't go for the bologna instead of the meat flavor just because the bologna is funnier, it's not really the Joker. And I just that just clicked with me instantly. Is that like, yeah, I keep saying that Batman the animated series Joker is the Joker as I like him, and that's a good example of that. I want the Joker that's going to go for the bologna before he goes for the meat cleaver. And I like how the Joker just kind of, at this point, knows every inch of this place. It is able to just turn the World's Fair itself into a weapon. About to sucker into this giant jet turbine. Oh. And Batman to the rescue. And you might be wondering why he rode his bat cycle instead of taking the Batmobile. It sometimes seems kind of arbitrary as to what vehicle he's going to take. But in this case, I can't really see Batman driving his Batmobile into this turbine. But he's probably got like more than one bat cycle. It's probably not that big a deal. Maybe he took Robin's bat cycle. Wrecks the turbine and catches Andrea. Oh no, he doesn't catch Andrea. He does superhero landing. She just kind of cluds to the ground. And now Batman solved the mystery. She's so good in this. Dana Delaney. It's no wonder they later on picked her to be Lois Lane in the Superman animated series. Her performance in this is so great. Her line delivery there, I love it. And this one here cuts like a knife. Fades away. But he's still got to catch the Joker. Destined to do this forever. Warner Brothers. You have the little Warner Brothers shield on the building there. And is that the Chrysler building in the background? Uh-oh. He's got like this Chrysler building helmet so he can camouflage himself. And it's clearly supposed to be a helmet. It's got like a little collar thing to rest on his shoulders. Like he was hoping the whole time Batman would track him back to his place just so he could wear that Chrysler building helmet. And Batman kicks him in the face and knocks out one of his teeth. And now we've got Batman and the Joker fighting in this miniature Gotham City like a couple of kaiju. And it's a nice metaphor with like Batman and the Joker looming over the city with toy planes attacking the Batman. Like that's how the Joker sees Gotham City. It's his playground. It's his place to play with all the toys and his pal Batman. Because you know he loves playing with Batman. You know, I can see these gyrocopters giving him a hard time with those large propellers and how they could cut into his flesh and everything. But he's still able to make short work of them, thankfully. Yeah, I gotta imagine he intended this whole place to be just like a giant death trap for Batman. That turbine that he used on Phantasm earlier, he was planning on using that on Batman probably. He wanted to lure Batman into a trap, and this is it. And then we have this jetpack here. This is based on a real life jetpack that the Army was developing, at least in the 1960s, maybe even earlier. But you can see the real jetpack in the James Bond movie Thunderball. And of course, Bruce Timm is a huge fan of the James Bond movies, so this is not a coincidence. And when they made the Mask of the Phantasm figures, that was what they made Jetpack Joker. That was the Joker figure they made. Batman is willing to kill the Joker, and willing to give his own life to kill the Joker in this case. And you know, I know a lot of people talk about Batman's code against killing, but whatever it takes means whatever it takes. And he said that in direct response to the Joker saying, "Let me go or we'll both die, whatever it takes." He's willing to kill the Joker. He's willing to give his own life to do it. And I think the real reason is he doesn't want Andrea to do it. maybe Andrea is beyond saving, but maybe he can just stop her from taking this one life. It's worth violating his own moral code to try to give her some small sliver of salvation. That's what I think is going on right here. But she's not done. She shows up again to claim the Joker's life for her own. And then the bomb goes off. Man, the animation, the destruction, it's just so impressive. And of course, the Joker just loves it. Batman isn't able to catch her. The one villain on this show that Batman was never able to catch was the Phantasm. And he's just whisked away to safety by Providence. He wasn't able to catch Andrea, and he wasn't able to save Andrea. And of course, we know the Joker gets away because we see him again. So she didn't kill the Joker after all. This is, to me, the theme of the whole movie. He's so good to Bruce. What's that? It's a little glint of something. It really is, I think, the relationship between Bruce and Alfred that's like not just the emotional core of this movie, but of the whole series. And I really think that Bruce just would have just fallen apart completely if not for Alfred. And you see when he becomes a recluse in Batman Beyond, what happens to Bruce Wayne when there's no Alfred. And there's Jughead. Nice to see an intercompany crossover between Archie and DC Comics. I love this here where he's trying his luck, but he just senses that. Do you want to be alone? And I guess somehow they must have cleared up that whole him being framed for murder thing, because here we see the bat signal lit up once again. Maybe Arthur Reeves made some kind of confession, or who knows what. Maybe the Joker even delivered something to police headquarters, because it's just not going to be as much fun without Batman to play with, is it? Great shot, great music. Produced by Benjamin Melniker and Michael Uslan. I haven't talked about Michael Uslan a whole lot on this, I don't think. But he was the guy that in the late 1970s had this crazy idea of doing a dark and serious version of Batman as a movie. And for over a decade, fought to see that vision realized. And it finally was in the 1989 Batman movie, which of course led directly to Batman the Animated Series. And because he bought the rights to Batman as a motion picture way back in the 1970s, part of his deal with Warner Brothers is he does get an executive producer credit on every Batman movie, including animated movies, and that's why his name is on this one. But it does my heart good to see Michael Uslan's name on a Batman the Animated Series project, because even though he wasn't directly involved with it, it wouldn't be something that would exist if not for that man. So every Batman fan, I think, owes a huge debt to Michael Uslan. And this song is Tia Carrera. Very good song. I like it a lot. And it, to me, has the feel of like, it could have been like a 1980s kind of James Bond theme song. Like I could see it fitting in, like, you know, with the 80s type Bond themes. Like, you know, you could have slotted this right in between All Time High and The Living Daylights. Yeah. Roger Warren, Ian Fleming's I Thought You Knew. At this time, Tia Carrera would have just been in the Wayne's World movies. So had a little bit of a crush on her. I think most guys my age had a little bit of a crush on Tia Carrera. I Never Even Told You, written by Sida Garrett and Glenn Ballard, performed by Tia Carrera, courtesy of Reprise Records. Oh, the synthesis was Hans Zimmer. So if you thought Batman Begins was Hans Zimmer's first Batman project, it wasn't. He worked on Batman Mask of the Phantasm. How crazy is that? We got some additional voices there. Mary Lou Henner was one of the additional voices, as well as Neil Ross. I'm guessing Mary Lou Henner was the lady that throws the drink in his face. And of course, Neil Ross has been on a lot of Batman the Animated Series episodes that we've watched. So I was so busy talking about other stuff, I didn't actually go over the voice cast, which is something I traditionally do on Batman the Animated Series episodes. So now that we're in the graveyard, I can go ahead and rewind it a little bit, and we'll go over that voice cast. That's what they call that at the end of the ending credits of a movie, where they get into like the symbols and everything. That's called a graveyard. So yeah, because I was talking about Michael Uslan the whole time, featuring the voice talent of Kevin Conroy as Batman, Dana Delaney as Andrea Beaumont, Hart Bochner as Arthur Reeves, Stacy Keach Jr. as Phantasm and Carl Beaumont, Abe Vigoda as Salvatore Valestra, Dick Miller as Chucky Saul, John P. Ryan as Buzz Bronski, Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. as Alfred, Bob Hastings as Commissioner Gordon, Robert Costanzo as Bullock, and Mark Hamill as the Joker. Dick Miller is a character actor that has done a lot of stuff. And I think for most people my age, the thing that Dick Miller would be best known for was he was in Gremlins. I think he was in like pretty much all of Joe Dante's movies, at least up until the point where he passed away. So, but that was it for Batman Mask of the Phantasm. I hope you enjoyed watching it along with me. It still really holds up. I still consider it like one of the best Batman projects of all time. It's like I say, I definitely think that Batman the Animated Series is one of the best versions of Batman. If it's not the best version of Batman, it's up there with, I think, like the Bronze Age comic book version and the Golden Age version. Like I'd say like the Bill Finger, Dick Sprang Batman of the 1940s, the Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil Batman of the 1970s on through like the 1980s, and this one. And of course, this one was like very heavily influenced by that Bronze Age Batman. So to me, they're almost kind of one and the same. If I say that Neil Adams' Batman is the best Batman, or I say that Batman the Animated Series Batman is the best Batman, I'm basically talking about the same version of Batman in my mind. It's not the same version of Batman exactly, obviously, but to me, they're both close enough to each other that they both work together. But that's it for this episode. I know it was a long one. If you stuck around for the whole episode, I appreciate your support. And if you enjoyed it, please make sure that you like and subscribe. We're gonna have lots more cool stuff coming up. The next episode of Batman the Animated Series I'm going to watch is going to be The Worried Men. So, and I'll probably be watching that sometime this week. And I've got some more action figures to open. Look at some of the cool stuff I've got coming up to open. I've got this Superpowers Aquaman from McFarlane Toys, and I've got Supergirl from McFarlane Toys, and I've got another G.I. Joe figure coming to me from Amazon soon. So got some cool stuff coming up to unbox for action figures. So, but that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. We will talk to you next time. Bye.